Welcome back to Faith and Heart. I'm Mayra Barry. Previously in Chapter 1, Juliet came home late from school, and her sisters complained to their mother, blaming a girl named Flossie for leading Juliet astray. Now here is Chapter 2. A Friend in Question. Hannah Grant was a model of excellence in every sense. Her health was as solid as her principles, and she was undeniably attractive, though not the kind of woman you'd call charming. More than just her students shied away from the piercing gaze of her cold blue eyes. Yet, despite her stern demeanor, the girls she taught generally liked her. She was strict but fair. With her sharp mind and practical approach, Hannah had a way of explaining things so clearly that even the most confused student could eventually grasp the material. This ability didn't come naturally. It was the result of her tireless dedication. Hannah prided herself on being thorough, practical, and committed to putting duty before personal wants. She had little patience for those who didn't meet her high standards and often struggled to understand anyone who couldn't keep up. In her classroom, there was no sympathy for students who were lazy or careless. As she took a quiet moment before her next class, Hannah's thoughts drifted to her younger sister, Juliet. She knew Juliet was intelligent, but Juliet didn't care about excelling or participating much in school. Hannah was glad she didn't have to teach her. Having Juliet in her class would have only added tension to their already strained relationship. It wasn't because she disliked her sister, but rather because she knew Juliet's potential, and knowing Juliet, she might do poorly just to prove a point. In Hannah's eyes, Juliet was more fragile and delicate than she let on, and she blamed their mother for this. Their mother always catered to Juliet, indulging her every whim. It felt to Hannah like their mother was more of a friend to Juliet than a disciplinarian, allowing her to run wild without consequence. Giving that kind of freedom to a young girl like Juliet also fostered bad habits that were hard to break. Hannah remembered when Juliet entered school. She was behind her peers, and her lack of discipline made her progress slow and frustrating. Hannah was irritated by Juliet's poor performance at school. It bothered her to see in her sister the same traits of laziness and indifference that others held. Why can't Juliet see that those traits will hold her back in life? If only Juliet would apply herself to her studies and want to learn, she could excel above all the others. Instead, Juliet had no interest in school or in thinking seriously about her future. She had long wanted to drop out. If it wasn't for her insistence that Juliet receive a proper education, their mother might have given in to Juliet's desire to leave school. Hannah heard the bell ringing. It wouldn't be long before her next students arrived and another lesson to teach her last students of the day. With a sigh, Hannah knew at some point she'd have to argue with Juliet to get a job after school, a job like a teacher or a governess. She'd have to make sure Juliet was prepared for such a job. Hannah grunted. She'd have to make sure their mother wouldn't interfere with her plans for Juliet working. She knew her mother hated the idea of her lovely Juliet working. Voices quieted down as her students came into her classroom. Hannah stood and waited till all her students arrived. She closed the door and began her lesson. Scene break. Flossie tugged on Juliet. "Let's go out before the crowd leaves." Juliet struggled to hold onto her books as her friend pulled on her to be one of the first to go out the school's doors. By the time they made it outdoors, the crowd of students exited and headed to their homes. "Come on, let's go over there." Flossie pointed to a nearby bench. Juliet was out of breath as she tried to keep up with her energetic friend. They sat on the bench. Juliet glanced at her Flossie. Her makeup was put on heavy today, and her outfit showed more leg than Juliet would care to see. In her opinion, her friend was pretty and vivacious. Juliet liked that about her. If only Flossie would wear more simple and fancier dresses, the kind she wished she had. "What do you say we walk a bit?" Flossie stood and stared at Juliet with her peculiar gray eyes. Her dark, tightly curled hair was gathered behind her head. Flossie's jewelry clanged as she fixed her hair. The cheap bracelets gathered on her one arm whenever she lifted her hand. Her hooped earrings were hard to see after she untied her hair and let it loose. "You know, Flossie, your makeup makes you look older than me." Juliet began walking with her friend. It wouldn't hurt her reputation just to walk with Flossie. She didn't care if it did. Her mother was a different story. She wouldn't want to hurt her mother. Flossie glanced at her. "Do you think your sister would be angry if we walked again today?" Juliet glanced at Flossie. She didn't like the color her friend chose to wear over her eyes. She didn't want to talk about her sister. Instead, she changed the subject. "We almost argued at supper last evening. Luckily, my mother was there, and we ate without arguing." Juliet tried to ignore seeing Flossie's legs each time she took a step. It wasn't the fashion she'd take a liking to. Now, if Hannah tried controlling what she wore, maybe she'd spitefully wear something hideous. That was the reason she hung out with Flossie. It was her way of opposing Hannah's control over her life. If it weren't for Hannah, she probably would have been bored with Flossie by now. The girl's taste in clothing was nothing Juliet would be caught wearing. Juliet grimaced as she thought about wearing such flashy garments. "Come home with me, Juliet," Flossie urged as they left the school grounds. "You've got plenty of time this afternoon." "I can't come to your house," Juliet said, a little startled by the invitation. Flossie should know she never went that far to the lower-class neighborhood. "I'll walk part of the way with you." "Why not?" "You've never even seen where I live." "Or is it because you're worried about what your sister will say? She doesn't think I'm a proper friend for you, does she?" "That's nonsense," Juliet said, her face flushing. "Come on, Juliet. You know it's true." "Well, even if it is, I don't care what Hannah thinks," Juliet retorted, kicking a piece of orange peel into the street. "Ha! That's the spirit. I was just telling Algernon yesterday how you're not the type to let those old maids at your house boss you around." Juliet didn't respond right away. She didn't like the way Flossie talked about her sisters. Despite their differences, they were still her family, and Juliet wasn't about to let anyone insult them. Juliet assumed Flossie sensed she overstepped and changed the subject. "Algernon says he's sure you won't end up an old maid like your sisters." Juliet blushed. "How could he possibly know that?" "Oh, he can tell. He's seen you." Juliet looked at Flossie. "When?" Flossie smiled and looked away, as if pretending she knew a big secret about her brother. "Well, he saw you at the school concert the other night." "He was there? I didn't notice him." Was her friend lying to her just to make her blush? Juliet heard Flossie chuckle. "He was there just to see you. He barely looked at anyone else all night. He said you were the only person worth watching." Flossie winked at Juliet. Juliet blushed even deeper. "I'm sure the music was beneath his standards." She cleared her throat, hoping to change the subject. "You're right there. He didn't fancy the music," Flossie replied, then grinned. "But he saw you, Juliet. You looked beautiful in that white dress you wore. I've never seen you look so pretty. I think Algernon was mesmerized by you." Juliet smiled despite herself. She knew she shouldn't be edging Flossie on, but it felt nice to be noticed. "Who were those women sitting next to you?" Flossie fixed a few of her bracelets on her arm. "I saw you talking to two of them." "One was my mother, and the other was Salome, my other sister." "Your sister looked so serious and wore plain clothing." Flossie glanced at her. Juliet answered a bit defensively. "She dresses simply because she's very religious. She works with the poor." "Oh, I'm glad I don't feel the need to turn myself into a spectacle for religion's sake." "But, as Algernon said, She makes you look even better by comparison. He's actually walked me to school this morning just to see if you'd show up, but you were late, of course." Juliet tossed her head. "I'm not sorry I missed him." "Don't be like that. He thinks you're an inspiration. He's even started writing a play with you as the heroine." "A play? You're kidding." "Nope. You're the damsel trapped in a castle, and he's the hero who rescues you." "Flossie!" Juliet protested, though she couldn't help but feel flattered. As they continued walking, Juliet didn't realize how far they'd gone until they reached the edge of a large green space. She suddenly stopped. "We're at the green already," Juliet exclaimed. "I wasn't planning to come this far. I'm sorry, but I have to head back." "Not yet. You're so close to my house," Flossie urged. "It's just across the green, see?" Flossie pointed to a house a short distance away. "Come on, Juliet. Algernon would be thrilled to see you if he's home." Juliet hesitated, standing tall. "He's not likely to be home at this hour," Flossie quickly added. "But even if he's not, we can have tea. Please, just for a little while." Juliet shook her head but felt a tug of curiosity. She wanted to see where Flossie lived, and she was undeniably interested in this brother she kept hearing about. Still, she knew her mother would disapprove, and visiting the Chalcombs would be an act of defiance against Hannah. Juliet bit her lower lip, hoping Flossie wouldn't catch on to her being curious. "You don't have to tell your mother or sisters," Flossie suggested slyly. "I don't hide what I do," Juliet shot back. "But I can't stay, Flossie. My mother would—" "Think you were lowering yourself by coming to our house?" Flossie interrupted, her tone resentful. "What's so bad about us that people avoid us like the plague?" "Mother doesn't think that way. She just doesn't know you," Juliet replied. "It's Hannah who's difficult." "But you're not controlled by Hannah, right?" Flossie pushed. "You're your own person, so why not prove it?" Flossie lifted her head as if challenging Juliet. Juliet's face flushed again. She had always hated being told what to do, and Flossie knew it. In that moment, Juliet forgot about her mother's potential disappointment and focused only on proving she wasn't under Hannah's control. "I'm afraid of no one," she declared. "All right, I'll come with you, but I can't stay long." Juliet hoped her tone sounded matter-of-fact. Flossie smiled in triumph as they crossed the green together. Juliet might boast about being independent, but more often than not, it was Flossie who got what she wanted. The Chalcombe house was tucked away behind a row of shrubs. The approach was unkempt. The front steps were dirty, but Juliet didn't pay attention to such things. At the top of the steps, a large bulldog lay stretched out. He barked ferociously when he heard them, but Juliet, who had no fear of animals, patted his head and soothed him until he relaxed. "Sykes likes you," Flossie said, surprised. "He's usually suspicious of strangers." Flossie knocked on the door, and after a moment, a disheveled maid opened it. "Come in," Flossie said brightly. Juliet hesitated for a second, thinking of her mother. Then, with a deep breath, she stepped across the threshold. This is the end of Chapter 2. Thanks for listening, and don't forget to like and subscribe to not miss out on Chapter 3.